A lot of people are on a journey to better themselves, to become the best version of who they can be, to grow. They are using terms like personal development or personal growth, stuff like that. And that's beautiful. For me, it is all the same thing. Those who have an intention to be happy, to be free inside, to be in love, to be joyful, to be in harmony, are growing, are being the best that they can be, or striving to be the best that they can be. And really, they're walking their spiritual path. I see absolutely no difference in between all of these terms and ways to approach one's evolution. Everything that we do is our spiritual journey. Those who have a bias or some kind of resistance with the word spiritual probably associate it with religion, which has nothing to do with. Man created religion. Spirituality is your pure intention of being in harmony with life. You don't need commitments. You don't need rules. And you don't need anybody to tell you what to do to be worthy of love, freedom, harmony, or to be worthy of God's love, if you want to see it that way. Even that is on its own a very interesting conversation, right? God. Some people don't believe in God. Some people think that there's no bigger power or divine source than us. I'm not here to convince anybody, but I can only say what I've experienced for myself. And when I go back to the recess of my awareness and consciousness and just be here and connect with such a beautiful rush of pure love, loving energy that's flowing through me, well, that's God to me. That's God moving through me. And then I ask myself, where's the source of that love, of that energy? And then I need to look at the universe. And I'm in awe at how it's operating and how vast it is and how orderly somehow it is. And to be honest, I kind of stop there and I say, well, if there's no divine power or there's no God or there's no whatever, call it whatever you want, how can all this be? How can I be? So for me, it's very simple. It's not theological. It's not seated in very complex philosophical conversations or whatnot. You're walking the spiritual path at all times, every day, every minute. There's no difference between life and the spiritual path. It is all the same thing. And whether you're trying to become the best version of who you are, you're growing, you're doing personal development or whatnot, you're a spiritual being trying to be in harmony with life, in full happiness, joy, and love. And that's it. That's true spirituality for me. And I can't blame you for having resistance around that, if you do, because we make it into those cosmic travel and dreams and planes of realities and travel between those different planes and a bunch of other things that are It's very much different than the simple truth that I just shared with you. But I invite you to come back to this truth and this essence of just intentionally wanting to be in harmony, in love, and enjoy is your spiritual path. You want to be in union with life. And that's it. Now, that being said, that wasn't even the purpose of where I wanted to go with this conversation. So let's go back to my original intention. But I guess I needed to lay the foundation first to have the conversation that we're about to have. Someone whose intention is set on being in harmony with life, being free, being happy, being in love with everything and everybody, will at one point in this journey separate their spiritual intentions and their worldly life, let's call it that, right? Your work, your life at home, your life with your kids, your life with your spouse, your life with your friends, your life in general. These two get separated for those who are walking the spiritual path at the very beginning. And I did that myself. I mean, it's a stage, it's a phase. There's no shame in doing that. If you're listening and you recognize yourself doing that, it's fine. But at one point, one realizes that that's separating my spiritual life than my worldly life. And if spirituality is about union with life, well, there's no place for separateness. So how about we try to reconcile these two? And a reconciliation will happen on its own once you see it for what it is. There's not much to do, to be honest. But the pitfall is in thinking that, how come my worldly life at work, with my spouse, with my family, is not changing, is not getting better? I'm still being trapped in my own conditionings and patterns and whatnot. And meanwhile, I'm doing all of those spiritual practices. I'm walking the spiritual path. I'm having a highly spiritual life that's being active. I cultivated by doing yoga, doing meditation, doing breathing, doing different healing modalities, doing psychedelics, whatever you do. You use a bunch of tools in order to be at peace and in love and enjoy and be happy. And yet, on the other side, you're like, geez, I'm still doing all this on the spiritual side, and yet at work or at home, I'm being caught up in some angriness and sadness and stress and anxiety, and yet I do my stuff, I do my spiritual stuff. So how come it's not changing? Well, that's the debate that you're having. That's the separateness I was talking about earlier. That needs to dissolve. I once heard somebody in a conference said, I was dealing with this problem in my day at work. Somebody said something that triggered me inside, and I tried to go to sleep at night and I couldn't. So I just sat down and I meditated for 6 hours. And all the people in the room were like, whoa. I mean, in awe of this guy meditating for 6 hours because he was too mentally active to go to sleep. So he figured, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to let it go. And then At the end, after 6 hours, apparently he did not even remember why he was meditating. Well, that's a practice. That's all good. But that doesn't impress me one iota. It's like people who have those spiritual dreams where they see saints or they converse with enlightening beings, or they travel into different planes and see lights and colors and stuff and flashes. And great, good for you. But that's just an experience. Now, that's not impressive either. It's great, it's fun, it's good for you. But the same as the gentleman that meditated for 6 hours, what is the good of having all of those experiences and practices if you still have a separation between doing all that and then you can't bring them into your worldly life? Nothing changes, really. See, I'm much more interested. I'm not the teacher or the coach that goes into the how-tos and the practices. I'm much more interested in what happens to you when you don't do these practices and you don't use those tools, because that's where you spend 99% of your time. Waking up in the morning, preparing the day, feeding the kids, getting dressed up, rushing to school, then going to work, solving a problem, having this meeting, sealing this big deal, and then having an employee quit on you, and then having this guy not come in, and then coming back home because the sick one called in from school, and then having to cook dinner and whatnot. That's how you spend your days, right? You are busy and into your day-to-day activities 99% of the time. And you carve in some 1 hour or a few minutes here and there to meditate or do your yoga or your activities and whatnot. And all of a sudden you're spiritual. That's not the path. There's no two path. There's only one path. And you can't separate them. So the real work happens when you reconcile the separation that you've created between all of my practices and the things that I'm doing to be the best version of myself and what I do during my day. They got to merge at one point. They got to merge and they have to help themselves out. What did I hear one time? It was so beautiful. A lady, a saint from India, said something like, oh yeah, I got it. She said, problems are the nectars of life. And I found that to be so beautiful. Because indeed, whatever happens and the problems and the obstacles that show up during your day, they are giving you such a beautiful opportunity to put in actual practice. Whatever you're doing to grow and be better and to feel at peace anyways, whatever happens. That's the real gift. So good on you if you meditate and you journal and you do all of that jazz. Now, can you be centered enough and use those practices that are meant to help you gain a level of awareness, of tranquility, of equanimity and clarity? That's what they're for. You meditate, you journal, you do yoga, you do psychedelics, you do whatever, so that you can be more at peace, you can be more centered, you can be more aware. You do these for that reason. So can you do all of these? And then when the shit hits the fan in the 99% of your day, can you use all of the muscle and the awareness and the consciousness that you've built doing those practices, or not, by the way, if you can skip that, all the best to you. Can you use that to put it actually in practice and in action when the shit hits the fan, so to speak? That's the real work. You're being given an opportunity every day to work with your stuff, whatever comes up. And if you can use all of the benefits that you cultivated from your practices at this moment, great. If you cannot, great. You know what to work on. And that's the path. That's the work. It's that simple. We make it very hard. We make it very complicated because we have a very nice brain and a very good heart that are capable of kicking in and jumping in and making a big mess out of it all. I was writing this morning in my chapter in my book, and I was saying that if you're okay inside, but you're not going to create problems. And if you think about your problems, well, your thinking mind is going to kick in and is going to create even more. So it's not going to be solved at the mental level. You have also a higher mind. That's the seat of your consciousness. That's your soul. That's your Atman. Call it whatever you want. And in order to sit there and be at peace and in harmony with whatever comes your way, you're going to have to use some tools. They're going to have to merge in your path. You can't separate them. And you're going to have to clean up inside. And don't believe for 1 second that whatever conditioning or patterns or trauma that you went through in the past, you're always going to have to cope with. And it's always going to be there. That's not true. Those who say that you need to cope or that they're still going to be there and come back to the surface at times, they just have not gone far enough yet. You can go deeper and you can be clean inside. You can let go of those past experiences and traumas and conditionings and patterns. Great masters have done it. Saints have done it. And other people that you don't know about have done it too. It is possible. You don't have to live with that on your shoulders, a chip on your shoulder for the rest of your life. That's nonsense. Trust me on that one. I just know. So I guess we talked about a lot of things in a short 20 minutes here today. Let me try to wrap it up for you. We started by leveling the playing field as far as what spirituality is. Whether you like the word or not, or you have biases or resistance around the word, if your intention is to be happy, joyful, in love, and free in life, well, you're walking the spiritual path. You still don't like the word? Call it something else. That's fine. But everything we talked about here today still applies, whether you resonate or not with the spiritual path. You might call it, I'm growing, I'm doing some personal development, I'm doing some personal growth, I'm trying to become the best version of myself, all the same thing. On that journey, you're going to separate the practices and the time you take for yourself to do that spiritual work from your worldly life. What happens at home, what happens at work, and whatnot. At one point, this veil, this separation will have to dissolve, and you're going to have to package it all in one path. There's no difference between your life, your daily life, and spirituality. It's only spiritual. Or spiritual beings living a human experience, as one saint said one day. And all of those practices and tools that you're using are just means to bring you to that peace, that harmony we were talking about, that seat of awareness, of consciousness that you are. Once you live your life sitting there, conscious, aware, you're at the top of your inner citadel, let's say, and nothing can touch you anymore. Doesn't mean that it's not going to be hard at times. Doesn't mean that you're not going to face obstacles. Doesn't mean that you're not going to feel things. Doesn't mean that the mind is not going to kick in and whatnot. My coach Alan always told me, Max, remember, great masters or enlightened beings have as much neurosis as you do and as I do. They just don't pay attention to them. Your mind and your heart will continue doing their thing. It's just like an appliance. It's the appliance of who you are. A toaster makes toast. A mind thinks. Okay? It's going to keep on thinking. And your heart will keep on emoting emotions. That's what it does. It doesn't mean you have to go with it. And that's what you're gaining as you practice and you use those different tools, whatever they are. Mantra, yoga, journaling, breathing, psychedelics, and all of the above, whatever. You're gaining distance. You're gaining awareness. You're gaining wisdom. You're gaining insight. You're freeing yourself from yourself, literally. That's what Christ said when he said, you got to die to be reborn. Yeah, you do have to die to the version that you created of yourself, to this false identity that your ego created along the way. This is not who you are. You're just seeing the world through the veil of your problems. That's not it. And when you do that, when you get there, when you understand this, when you practice it, when it counts, not in the 1% where you pay it, you give some time to your spiritual practices or to yourself or to your well-being or to your mental health. You can call it whatever you want. When in the 99%, that's where it counts. And that's where you got to leverage all of the goodness that you cultivated on your practices and bring it into this one life that you're going through. So it's not true that you get to live a spiritual life and then a worldly life. It's only one life. It's only one life, and it's a beautiful one. It's a beautiful one where everything you're being given every moment is an opportunity to be in awe, to be at peace, to be in bliss, or to deal or to work with what you need to work with so that you may be there. I hope this makes sense, and I hope this is helpful. Work with yourself, guys. Yeah, that's the most beautiful gift you can offer you and a world. All right. Talk to you soon. Thank you.